So if I get on TRT or anybody gets on TRT, we're going to take this forever and it's going to stop the natural production of testosterone. Is that correct, or is that?
That's somewhat correct. So the reason you get on TRT, with the replacement word being that middle word of testosterone replacement therapy, is because your testicles are not making enough to begin with. So we replace what it is not making. When you give testosterone from the outside, that causes further decrease in production of the testicles that were not providing enough to begin with. So yes, it will decrease what you were making. Let's say, just for a ballpark number, it was 50. It will drop that number to 25 or so, but it's different for every person. In regards to, do you have to take for the rest of your life? As long as you want the benefits of that testosterone, it's a hormone. So just like taking a thyroid medication, your thyroid's not just going to wake up. Taking insulin for diabetes, your pancreas isn't just going to wake up. Your testicles don't say, I'm kidding, I'm going to start making testosterone, let's do this. So yes, you have to take it as long as you want to reap the benefits that the testosterone is going to give you.
So we're talking with Dr. James LaPere of the Refinery Medical and Aesthetics out of Murfreesboro, Tennessee. And today's show, we're going to talk a lot about TRT, primarily because of the way we were introduced, so how we got to know each other. So I had another guest on the show within the last couple of months, and we talked about Ozempic, or what's the actual word?
So semaglutide or semaglutide, depending on how they say it, is the generic name for the medication, Ozempic or Wegovy.
Yeah. So I had a guest, and we talked a little bit about that, and then you listened to the show, and then reached out and said, "Hey, I've got not a different perspective, but I got my perspective on this Ozempic thing. Do you mind if I give you my perspective?" I said, "Sure." So we got on the phone call, and then you were in local to me, so I said, "Well, yeah, let's talk." So then later you said, "Why don't you come in and do a full blood workup on testosterone, among other things?" And so I did. Went to your clinic down in Murfreesboro, which is really nice.
Thank you.
I mean, and I'm not just saying this because you're a guest on the show, but all of us, we've been to the doctor millions of times in our lives. I don't think I've ever been to a doctor's office that was that cool looking. You actually had bourbon. Not necessarily everybody gets that when they walk in, but there are occasions when that makes sense.
Correct.
But you do aesthetics and medical.
Correct.
So kind of both. And you did a full blood panel on me, tested it, and you predicted. You said, "Hey, based on what I had shared with you about my medical, you said your testosterone is probably low." And sure enough, that's what came back, right?
Right.
So my testosterone came back at 370.
Correct.
And then the free testosterone was 51.
Right.
And it's supposed to be at what?
So to feel good, normal free testosterone is about 150 to 225, with the high side of normal being 256. So I would classify you in the significantly low. Not just low, but significantly low, which, like we had discussed, at the age that you are, so when we are knocking on 50's door, that means we've had a good 15 plus years of our testicles decreasing by 1% every year of what they make. So I'm not Nostradamus with being able to tell you your testosterone's low. You would have had to be skyrocketed high for me not to get that question right, mixed with the symptoms that you were complaining about. So when we talk about fatigue, or we talk about not being able to lose that stubborn belly fat despite having an extremely strong workout regimen, and I can say that not just blowing up your ego, but based on that HDL, the good cholesterol, the only way you can get that to go up is through exercise. And yours was at 57. So to be at 57, outstanding. Anything above 40, good. Anything above 50, great. Anything above 60, I'm giving you a trophy and you're never gonna have a heart attack. So I know that you're doing what you're saying. And I heard the complaints that you were having, so it was very easy to project what the causes could be. I do the full panel because thyroid, and lots of people have thyroid issues, they can mimic a lot of the low T issues. So I want to make sure I'm not masking those more serious issues like a thyroid going bad by giving you testosterone, because regardless of whether it is testosterone or thyroid or a mix of both, if I give you testosterone, it will make you feel better. And then I might be masking that more serious thing like a failing thyroid, which has many more impacts throughout the body than what thyroid does. So we want to make sure that we eliminate those other possibilities first.
So you could tell by my blood work and my HDL that I work out. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
So that's interesting to me because I work out I only started working out regularly about 2 or 3 years ago, where I started walking 4 days a week and riding my bicycle. So one or the other, depending on the weather, whatever, I do one or the other. So right now, I'm pretty religious about it. Like I go Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and then sometimes on the weekends, I get up and go do that. And then I also do TRX. To me, that's not extreme. That doesn't seem like a lot. I walk about 3 miles. If I ride a bike, I'm riding 6 or 7. So it's not a lot. But what you're saying is even just that amount has improved my cholesterol to the point where you're like, this is really good.
Correct. And there is a small subsect of people that have a genetic defect that causes an abnormally high HDL. Lucky card number one, because they'll never have a heart attack. Like I said, just by default, their HDLs are sometimes in the 70s. So like I said, 60, I'm already giving you a high five and the happy dance. You get to 70s, that's almost uncharted territory for most people. And I have some patients that are triathletes that compete at the Ironman level, and they are not sitting in the 70s. So that aside, if you don't have that lucky genetic defect where you just spit out more HDL, which the whole purpose of HDL is it's the cleanup crew. The high density lipoprotein, you want it high. The low density lipoprotein, which is the bad, you want that low. So it helps to clean out that low density lipoprotein to keep those accumulations of plaques from building up into the bloodstream, ultimately into the arteries, causing those issues where you've got blockages. Your cleanup crew is very strong. Working out for as little as 3 months consistently can have a significant impact on the HDL. When people come in, I think a lot of them see this huge unsurmountable mountain that there's no way that they can get in shape because they're starting from this place of sedentary American lifestyle where most of us sit behind a computer or don't move very much, go home and then sit on a couch. So moving just 3 times a week, and the exercises I give my weight loss patients, you can do in 18 minutes. If you just do those 3 exercises 3 times a week, 3 months, I guarantee you're going to have a decrease in your LDL because you're going to have an increase in your HDL. So at 3 years, that's phenomenal consistency in my book. America, 66% of us are in the overweight or obese category. That's why we have companies making drugs like semaglutide, because we have issues with the good old-fashioned way of diet and exercise. Of course, every doctor in the world would love for a patient not to be on any medication. Do diet and exercise. Listen to what we told you. That's awesome. We're like the proverbial parents of all mankind. Please just do what you're told. And we just don't. And whether it be life or stress or injury or sickness, it's very difficult for at least 66% of the people in America to maintain a somewhat healthy lifestyle to where they won't fall into that obese category.
Now, those obesity categories, we talked about this when I was at your clinic about how that is determined. So so the BMI ratings and all that kind of stuff isn't really based on reality. But how do you look at obesity? Because I know that by looking at just BMI charts, I'm considered obese.
Correct.
Which is insane to me. I do carry a little extra weight, but nobody. If you line me up with 100 people and just had innocent people say, which one's obese? I'm never going to be the guy. Right. I'm not going to be the guy. So why is that?
Why is that? Why is the BMI the way that it is?
Yeah. Why would somebody my weight and height be considered obese?
Because insurance companies like to make money. It's very simple. Yeah. So if you are trying to get on a medication, you have to qualify for these obesity medications or obesity surgeries like bariatric surgeries by having a certain BMI. And if you do not have that, you don't qualify, they don't have to pay for it. They don't have to pay for that medication, they don't have to pay for the surgery. If you want life insurance and that BMI is high, even you in the obese category, it's high. And obese people die before other people, so your life insurance is going to cost more. Mm-hmm. So they'll charge you more for life insurance from the insurance companies because of the BMI, and then they will deny more medical procedures and medications based on if your BMI is not high enough. So they win on both ends. That's the end story. Insurance companies, I guarantee you, it is their lobbyists that keep BMI anywhere in any medical history.
Now, you were saying something earlier about if the rate, the level of HDL that I have, which was 67?
57.
57. So you said that, and I know this is not a guarantee, but like somebody like me with that is never going to have a heart attack.
And never, of course, is,
Right.
we never say never and
Not gonna hold
always,
that.
but the likelihood with the other factors that are going into your health that you're going to have a purely plaque-related heart attack is minimal. Don't do cocaine. Cocaine causes a spasm of the heart arteries, the coronary arteries that surround the heart and give the heart its blood, and it mimics a plaque or a blockage because it spasms the muscles in the arterial wall. So you can definitely prove me wrong. Please don't do that.
I don't want to.
HDL, though, it does a great job at pulling out that bad cholesterol. Now, if you decide that every time you work out, and God love them, but you do the Bill Clinton diet, and at the end of your run, you end it at McDonald's, and you throw down a triglyceride, which is purely fat-filled meal, into your mouth, your liver can only do so much, and HDL can only do so much. Just like if you were to be completely stressed out, an Ambien can only do so much to help you fall asleep. If you are worried about everything under the sun, you can overpower that Ambien, for sure. Same thing with HDL, with LDL, with anything in life. If we try to push the boundaries and go outside of moderation, most times things are going to get a little bit rocky.
Well, I'm really glad to hear you say the part about like a plaque-related heart attack is not at all likely for me, and here's why. So my grandfather on my mom's side had his first heart surgery and heart attack and open heart surgery when he was in his 30s. I don't know, like 35 maybe. It was pretty young. His oldest son, my uncle, same thing. And my mom has not had any issues that not that even I'm aware of, but like I would have known. She hasn't had any. And her younger brother hasn't had any that I'm aware of. But because of the proclivity in my family, years and years and years ago, probably almost 30 years ago, I started taking a baby dose of aspirin, 81 milligrams or whatever,
Right.
whatever that is, every day, just because I looked at how do I help, and so I've done that. And then only recently, like I said, in the past 2 or 3 years, have I started exercising regularly. But as far as diet goes, I don't have the typical fast food diet. I'm not eating McDonald's, that type of thing, but I eat out a lot. And fast food is I wouldn't say regular, but is a part of my diet. You know, I like Zaxby's chicken fingers, you know, but I don't go to Taco Bell or McDonald's or Burger King. I'm not doing that stuff. And I try to pay attention to what I eat, but I would consider myself a typical person, but a little more on the healthy side in what I eat. But the fact that I work out, take that aspirin, and you know, I eat decent, like it seems like it's all working to my benefit according to the blood results.
Correct. And there's one thing that I always recommend when we have a significant cardiac history early on, and that's a calcium score. And you and I had talked about that.
We did.
And it's a very quick CT scan where they look at those coronary arteries and they see if there's any calcium deposits, which is the buildup of those plaques inside the coronary arteries. And it'll give you a 5-year preview of the likelihood that you have a cardiac event. So like I said, we can always override things. So despite your HDL, despite working out, despite the diet, despite the exercise, genetics can trump a lot of things. So I don't know what your ancestors' medical histories were. I don't know the exact cause of what happened with them. So I couldn't predict what's going to happen or not happen for you. I can tell you though, based on your own heart, not taking any variables of the family in there, by looking at a scan that takes less than 30 seconds, and most imaging places charge about $50. Insurance companies won't even cover it, it's so cheap. And then you know for 5 years.
Yeah, well I probably should do that too, just as a preventative measure. Going back to what the way we originally met was with Ozempic or semaglutide or whatever. I don't know if I'm saying it right, but whatever that is. I have a cursory interest in it because I have a friend who went on it and he was looking really, really good after he went on it, and he wasn't at all overweight in my estimation whatsoever. But the next time I saw him, it was significantly body composition was a little different. He'd been working out too. And he said, oh yeah, you need to look this thing up. It's the greatest thing ever. That's the first time I'd ever heard about it. And then I had the former guest on my show. I can't remember what, Terry Bargy was the guest. Can't remember what episode it was, but sometime within the past couple of months he came on and we talked about it. And so my interest level has been in it only because at the weight that I'm at now, I feel completely comfortable. I feel fine and satisfied with my body, except for my belly. Like the spare tire, as they say. Like if that was gone, I wouldn't even care if I didn't lose any weight. The weight doesn't really matter. It's just a number. But I can't get rid of that. So I was only a slight interest in it. And that was how you and I ultimately or originally got connected. So with what you see now in my blood results, do you still think that TRT versus doing something like that would help me knock that last bit of belly fat? And I mean, what do you think?
Let's take a quick break to thank our amazing sponsors for making this podcast possible.
I finally got it. It's the brand new Relay credit card. So check it out. I'm gonna do a little unboxing for you so you can check this out. So here we go. Nice little case, kind of like the American Express. You know, they're not playing. They're doing it right. Oh, look at this. There's a quote right inside. It says, "Success is having to worry about every damn thing in the world except money." Johnny Cash. That's pretty good. I've not heard that one. Oh, this is nice. A little thing on the back, up to 1.5% cash back, no annual fees or interest, 30-day billing cycle. And there it is. It's the Relay credit card. It's a Visa. So I'm not going to show you my number, but there it is. Look at that. Boom. Go check out Relay. Go to therealjasonduncan.com/relay, and you could start banking with one of the best in the world.
Thanks for listening to our sponsors. Now, back to the show.
I think if you use the benefits that TRT will give you, then yes, you will have a much easier time of losing that belly fat. I would do it in that order that you mentioned of TRT, and if that doesn't knock everything out, then look in the future at possibly something like that. But I would want to have a much deeper conversation with you because there are risks associated with it. And you saw a glimpse of how long my standard appointments are, and that scan that we had you do, I make all of my weight loss patients do that so we can establish what their baseline body fat percent and tells me what their lean mass is to make sure you're not having those losses. But I always try to talk patients out of jumping directly to something like semaglutide if there are other issues with the blood work. And I always tell them, would you put gas in a car and try to drive it if you didn't have four wheels on it first? So right now, we don't have all four wheels. I try to make you lose weight with semaglutide. Most likely, you're going to lose some weight. Are you going to keep it off when we stop that medication and taper you off? Doubtful. Because we didn't fix the actual problem, which is a decrease in your testosterone, which decreases your metabolic rate, makes it harder for you to keep lean muscle mass on, which keeps your metabolic rate up, which helps you to sleep better, which helps you to decrease cortisol levels, which decreases the amount of body fat and especially belly fat you hold on. So testosterone. And testosterone is a much cheaper medication. It's much easier on the body. The side effect profile is much different than it is with the semaglutide. I make those patients come in every 4 weeks. The first month, they have to come in every 2 weeks, day 1, day 14, day 28, to make sure that they're not having issues. And I know I am an oddity in the medical world by making the patients come in for that, but I bet my side effect profile, especially serious side effects, are far and away lower than anybody else's. But as a doctor, I'm not supposed to say this, I hate medications. I don't like them. Testosterone is a hormone. I'm replacing a hormone in your body just like we replace insulin or we replace levothyroxine, which is the T3 for the thyroid. That I'm just putting back in, hopefully to an amount to where you live somewhere around how you felt in your 30s. 20s, probably not the smartest. I don't need you saying, hold my beer. I can jump off this bridge. But 30s, we had a little bit more wisdom, maybe a gray hair or two. We're probably going to be safe with those levels.
Okay. So the hold my beer comment made me think something somebody told me earlier. And by the time this comes out, it won't nearly be as funny as it will be today. But we're recording this right after the attempted assassination of Trump. And so somebody told me today that, in the aftermath of that he was caught on audio, let me get my shoes, let me get my shoes. So somebody said, let me get my shoes is his new hold my beer. It's really funny. Anyway, off topic. But going back to the TRT thing. So if I did TRT, what does that look like? So you have my numbers, and first of all, what does that? How is it administered? Is it a shot? Is it a cream? Is it a pill? Or is it all the above? What is it?
So the cost-effective ways to do it are a shot or a cream. The cream we have compounded, they send it directly to your house. The shot we keep in the clinic, we pre-draw it to make sure that there's not any guesswork of, did I drop too much, too little? Not that I don't trust people, but did you abuse it and drop too much on purpose? We always check something called a controlled substance database to make sure that you're not going to the low T clinic down the road and trying to double dip. Not that testosterone, in my opinion, has the same weight as most controlled substances, but there was a Senate committee with President Joe Biden on that years ago, and testosterone did get lumped into the same category as all of these steroids that people just make and bake in their kitchen or import from who knows where overseas. So we do draw everything up to make sure that everything is kosher, that you're not getting it from somewhere else, so that you're not going to have an overdose of testosterone, which I would definitely be able to tell on your follow-up blood work. You give yourself the shot. So you didn't get to meet our assistant Tina, but Tina comes in, she teaches you how to do the first shot, and then dealer's choice. You can either give yourself the shot in front of Tina, make sure that you did it the appropriate way, or Tina can give you the shot. If you opt for the cream has to be applied to the scrotum. It has to be applied twice a day. We live in Tennessee, as you can imagine. Cream on the scrotum, mid-July, awesome feeling. The problem that I have with the cream for most men is we have crazy work hours. And from the time the cream is applied, there is a 3-hour window where no intercourse with a female can occur unless you want your wife sporting the same beard that you have. So you have a crazy late night, you're really feeling frisky, you came back from a long trip in Delaware, and you land, you put the cream on, it's 11 o'clock at night, you'd like that little bit of loving, but now I've got to wait until 2 o'clock in the morning, or I don't do the cream, which the whole point of the cream twice a day, every day, is because your levels are just perfect. Yeah. You have no peaks and no troughs, which are where the side effects come in. They're just perfect. So then people start skipping. I don't want to do the cream tonight because kids had a ball game. We're not getting back until 8 o'clock. If I put the cream on, I'm not going to get any loving until 11 o'clock. I know after 10 o'clock, the wife is lights out. I'm skipping the cream tonight. So the shots are usually the way that I go. After 6 months, and I have determined what dose you are going to be on, because for that first 6 months, even the little bit your testicles are making, they're going to decrease what they're making, and I don't know how much. So as you are raising, you're also going to be getting pulled down a little bit. So when we land at 6 months, that's probably the dose you're going to be on, without fail. Then we could switch to something called a pellet, where I do a minor surgical procedure. I introduce pellets that are compounded with testosterone in them. They can stay in the butt cheek for about 4 months or so. And that way you're only having to get something done once every 4 months instead of having to do a shot twice a week, every week. 99% of my patients use the shots, 0.5% uses the cream, and we're in the 0.00 for men that do the pellets, because men just don't have as much butt fat as women. So the pocket, a lot of times, if you reach back there, you can feel those little pellets, and men don't love that.
So it's a shot. So I'd be administering the shot myself twice a week?
Twice a week. A lot of places will do it once every 7, 10, or 14 days. The half-life of the medication that we use, testosterone cypionate, it's 8 days. I don't want you to drop that far. I don't want you to feel like Superman with a walloping dose on day 1, and then by day 5, now you're not even at 0 because your testicles have decided to stop working a little. Now you're at less than where you were before you even came to me. And then it comes back to Monday, we give you another shot, Superman for 2 or 3 days, And like I said, those peaks and troughs become the problem. And when you give a big dose once every 7, 10, or 14 days, sometimes that's too much for the body to handle at one time, and you'll start spilling over and converting into estradiol, which is the exact opposite of what testosterone does in the first place. So now we're not only losing testosterone, but we are combating it with the female hormone estradiol. So twice a week, I've found splitting that weekly dose into those 2 doses, while it stinks to have to stick yourself twice, gives you a much better and more level for your testosterone for the long run. Scar tissue is minimal. At a year or so, you won't even really feel the needle go in anymore. Every so often, you might get a little knot, but with the amount that most of my people inject, which is usually less than 0.5 mLs, half of a milliliter, which is somewhere around 100 milligrams, depending on the strength that we use. The knots are minimal. It's not too much for the butt cheek to have to absorb. I do recommend you switch cheeks, or you can do the upper thigh, or you can do the deltoid muscle. I always recommend switching. Every once in a while a knot comes. If you get a knot, avoid the knot, switch to the other cheek, or move over a centimeter.
Okay.
And then after the 12-week mark, you'll come in. We'll see where your levels are, see if I was able to gauge correctly. If you are high, I don't touch it, because you have another 3 months where your testicles are going to continue to decrease. Most of my patients at the 12-week checkup are running at least high normal, at least, if not a little higher than that normal side. As long as you're not having side effects being your blood pressure is skyrocketing, you have reverted to the 13-year-old acne from 7th grade, you're having headaches, you're so hot that you can't sleep, we keep that dose where it is. If you are low at the 12-week mark, I do go ahead and make an adjustment and increase the dose, because it's only going to be lower at that 6-month checkup, because the testicles will continue to decrease. If you're going to take the risk of having me treat you with testosterone, and we can talk about the risk in a second, you could at least get the benefit. I don't want someone taking a medication and not reaping the benefit, which unfortunately for most healthcare providers that accept insurance, that is what their patients are doing. They have a total testosterone that is less than 200 to 250, depending on the insurance company or the lab. They don't look at free testosterone. Insurance companies do not accept free testosterone being low. It has to be the total. Free is normally somewhere around 25% of total, so you can imagine if you're at 200 to 250, your level is all the way down to yours. I told you that normal should be about 150 to 225, which means at bare minimum, for the average 40-ish person, it should be about 600 for your total testosterone. But there are things like sex hormone binding globulin that can eat up the free testosterone. There's bioavailable testosterone, where some of the testosterone gets linked to albumin, which is a protein in our blood. And those all eat up the free testosterone, which actually makes you feel good. So those people, as soon as they cross into the threshold of that 200 to 250, the doctors don't give any more. Insurance companies has said it's normal. It says normal on the test. You can't give them any more. It's normal. That would be like making someone's blood pressure extra good. If it's 120 over 80, I don't increase your dose to try to get it over 100 over 60, and that's what they say. Because insurance companies look at a number. They've never talked to you. So when you come in and your numbers are at 155, 160 for your free testosterone, which is in the normal range even for free, and you tell me, I'm still tired, the belly fat's still here, I'm still not having the best with my mood stability, my libido is still not where it's supposed to be, I can go up. I don't accept insurance. I don't have to play by their rules. I get to talk to you. And as long as it's safe for you and the numbers make sense on this side, we can still make adjustments to get the benefit of actually taking the risk of taking testosterone.
So is testosterone replacement therapy, is TRT, is that a steroid, or is that, what is that? Because I know it's equated, as you say, falsely, but what is it?
It's a hormone. It is used as an anabolic steroid in stacks with professional bodybuilders and Now the highest abuser of anabolic steroids is actually the 45 to 55-year-old executive male. Usually makes greater than 6 figures because they've got everything in life, but true wealth, of course, is health. So they want that as well. Testosterone is made in a lab by a certified pharmacy regulated by the FDA and prescribed by a doctor that hopefully went to a medical school and passed a couple tests. Anabolic steroids are gotten by individuals who are not physicians from, we won't even call them pharmacies, because I have heard of people and seen documentaries where they just get huge bags of powder of testosterone, mix it with oil, bring it to a level to where it dissolves, and then put it in a little bottle that looks like a pharmaceutical bottle, and then they hand it to you, and someone, whether it be bro science or a trainer or a friend, tells you this is about how much I put in and I feel really good, and then you just do that. Or you take a pill that's illegal in the United States, or you take a different injectable that's illegal. I'm not talking bad about those particular things. I'm just saying testosterone does not belong in that category if it's being prescribed by a physician and made in a pharmacy. The people that are doing these things, most of them are in better shape than you and I. And their diets, you want to talk about a clean diet, it's a clean diet. They still have to follow up with a doctor though, and a lot of those people do come to me and they have their blood work drawn by me just to make sure that the things that they are taking are not doing damage in the big picture. But testosterone, while it has anabolic properties and it is used by people in a class of anabolic steroids, it is not the same as all. That's like saying, is Adderall crystal meth? Both of them are methamphetamines. However, one made by a pharmacist or a pharmacy and prescribed by a doctor. The other one is made by a bald guy in a yellow jumpsuit in an RV, right? So you can't line those two up and say they're the exact same thing.
Yeah. So if I started doing TRT therapy, I know what steroids do to me because I've just stopped. Anytime a doctor ever prescribes it for whatever reason, I'm like, I'm not allergic, but I just don't like it. Mm-hmm. If I did TRT therapy and I started getting those same results where I've got wanting to eat all the time, I'm getting hot night sweats, I can't sleep, what happens then? Can I just say, this is not working for me and just stop? Or?
So you can do a couple things, and there are 2 different classes of steroids. There are anabolic steroids. Testosterone would fall into an anabolic steroid. And then there are corticosteroids. Corticosteroids meaning they are made down in the adrenal gland, like prednisone, solumedrol, decadron. The job of those is to decrease inflammation and try to help you knock your immune system down so that if you are fighting an illness, but your body is fighting a little too well to where it's causing problems like a sinus infection where you are fighting so hard that you've got an overproduction of mucus and your sinuses have blown up and you can't breathe through your nose, you take a corticosteroid and it decreases the inflammation. You get bursitis because you've decided that you are going to take up pickleball at our age and you go play 50 days in a row without resting and your shoulder gets swollen. You get a shot of steroids in your shoulder. Those are steroids designed for decreasing inflammation or decreasing an immune response. Those are what were given so much during that COVID outbreak, trying to decrease the inflammation that happened in the lungs. That's what killed from COVID. The virus caused systemic inflammation and doctors could not figure out a quick enough way to decrease that inflammation. So corticosteroids and the side effects that you have from them are completely different from anabolic steroids like testosterone. Testosterone will actually increase your appetite in most cases. Most people, if they don't work out, will gain somewhere around 5 to 10 pounds in the first 6 months of starting testosterone on the male side. If you work out and you do what you are supposed to with your diet, a lot of times that's minimal. Even for the people that do have that weight gain over the first 6 months, if they don't work out, usually that weight starts to drop off because a lot of that weight is because an increase in water in the muscles, because the hope is the body picks up on this extra steroid that is in the system, this extra testosterone, and it thinks this muscle wants to work out, let's give it some water. Let's increase the blood flow to the muscle so that it can deliver more amino acids, so when you rip it up, it'll get repaired faster, and so that when you work out and the lactic acid builds up, it can pull it back out. So one of the big things with testosterone is your recovery time starts to decrease. It turns back that clock. That's the first thing that most people see. It's not you go into the gym and your bench goes from 200 to 300. It's you go into the gym and the next day that soreness isn't that I can't work out today soreness. It's just that I can tell I did something good soreness, and you're ready to work out again. So that repetition of being able to keep working out increases because our old man body gets superseded by the young man testosterone coursing through our veins.
So TRT, if the average person on TRT, male, gains 5 to 10 pounds in the first 6 months, that sounds like the opposite of what I'm trying to do with losing the belly fat. And I'd still like to get down about 15 more pounds. So how are we going to get through that to get me to where I really want to go? How long does that take, and what's going to happen?
So the increase in weight for most people is in the muscles. It's not in the fat. It's not fat weight. It is increase in the muscles. So you're going to be able to work out longer. Your metabolic rate is going to improve. So your fat melting is going to increase. You don't have any muscles hiding in the fat layer, of course, of your belly. There are muscles underneath it. Most people do not have enough hypertrophy to where their belly muscles get huge and all of the sudden they can flex it and you see it bulging through their shirt. So I don't think that's going to happen to you unless you take up some weird weighted sit-up challenge. But your shoulder muscles can start increasing in size, your leg muscles can start increasing in size, all of those things increasing. It'll at least give a false appearance that there's an improved taper. But like I said, that 5 to 10 pounds, all weight is not created equal. The weight is going to be distributed not in the belly fat. The weight is going to be distributed evenly throughout the body in the skeletal muscle for the most part.
So the fat that I'm trying to lose is going to be burned off quicker because my body's going to want to exercise more or be more active because the muscles are gaining.
Hands down. So if you do the resistance training, so the TRX, that is a great resistance training format to use. Weightlifting, great resistance training. Lifting weights or doing resistance training in general, hands down, is the best way to lose fat. I don't know how the entire world has been tricked into thinking that cardio is the best way to lose fat. It baffles me. The word is in there, cardio. We know what it does. It improves your cardiovascular health, which I don't care how big your muscles are. You want your heart to be healthy and work, of course. Yep. So I'm not saying don't do cardio, but to do cardio for weight loss is asinine. It's for your heart. It's not for your muscles. Weight resistance is for your muscles. So increase the muscles. It takes so much energy to keep a muscle alive. Your metabolic rate increases. You burn a higher rate of calories for about 24 hours after you work out. So you do an extremely hard weight session to where you're tearing muscle down. It takes at least 24 hours for your body to calm down from that because it's trying to deliver all these nutrients to make the repairs. It's hard to build a muscle back after you tear it. You do cardio, even if you do cardio at the fat burning rate. So 80% max target heart rate, best for your heart and your lungs. 60% of your max target heart rate, best for fat burning. Even if you do that, let's say you do it for an hour, you have a higher rate of your metabolism for about 45 minutes to an hour afterwards. So you get 2 hours worth of increased metabolic rate versus about 24 hours. I feel like it's simple math of which one is the better for burning fat off of our body. But we are all tricked. And I see it every time I go to the gym. And unfortunately, we're tricked more on the female side because you walk into the gym and you got us guys who are meatheads and we're picking up everything and grunting at everything we can, trying to flex in the mirror, looking at ourselves. And then you got 145 women that are on every elliptical and cardio machine that you can see. And you want to see the most in shape women, I guarantee you they are picking up weights. Those are the ones that are having the best benefit, especially for their bones. Because once you hit menopause, your bones start decreasing in density for a female. So what you got is what you got. So lifting weights prior to menopause really is most important. But every female says one thing: I don't want to get bulky. And to that I say, well, you don't have testicles. because testosterone is a free cheat. And I know personally, I work very hard in the gym, and I do not look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. So you lifting a little bit of weight a few times a week to try to increase your mass, a little bit of your muscles, is not going to cause you to turn into Arnold Schwarzenegger if I can't do it with testicles and TRT. And that usually quiets them down, but most will not listen. And when I do check-ins, they'll say, well, I did get some 5-pound weights. And my rule is always, if you can throw weight at your husband, it is not heavy enough.
So you recommend dumbbells. We talked a little about this at your clinic. You've got those Bowflex selectable weight dumbbells. Why dumbbells? Is it just because it's just easy?
It's not because it's easy. Anybody who is starting a new workout regimen, I always try to get them to do dumbbells for at least 3 months first. For people who have never done it, as you've seen the dumbbells, we work out right in the hall in my clinic for at least those 3 exercises of a pushing exercise, a pulling exercise, and a leg exercise to make sure that they have the proper form. And because a lot of people who have not lifted weights in a gym are very intimidated. They'll think they look silly, and they immediately gravitate towards those Nautilus-esque machines because they know all they can do is push how it's supposed to push. They won't mess up. When you do that, though, you disengage all of the stabilizer muscles, which are the most important muscles as we start to age to keep us from falling and to keep us from having injuries. We protect our joints by having those good stabilizer muscles. And the worst thing that you can do as a brand new person in a gym is to sit down and do very stabilized movements like the leg press machine, where the only pathway of motion is up and down. You have no side to side, nothing is shaking, it's a solid plate, and get down there and lift weights and lift weights and lift weights and only build up the large muscle groups in your legs, because then there's going to be an even bigger unbalance between the smaller stabilizer muscles and the large muscles, to where when you need balance, you're going to have issues. If you try to make a fast cutting motion, that big strong muscle is going to propel that joint at a rate that the stabilizer muscle can't handle, and then you're going to have issues with torn ligaments, with torn tendons, with meniscus tears, with bursitis, with labral tears in the shoulder. So always, first 3 months, dumbbells only, or single leg movements only. My favorite is walking lunges, holding a weight in just one hand so that the body's trying to tip over the whole time, so then you're getting that stabilization of the core too. After that first 3 months, you can use machines, you can use the bars, do whatever you want, but I still would try to have at least one dumbbell only exercise in every workout if you're doing something like chest day only. Sure, do bench press, do incline press, do the fly machine, but at least grab the dumbbells for one of those exercises. Make your decline bench that day be from a dumbbell-centric move to keep those stabilizer muscles firing too.
So I want to talk a little bit about your story and how you got to this place. You opened the refinery in 21, is that right? So you opened the refinery in 21. Awesome clinic. If you're in the Middle Tennessee area, you should go check out the refinery in Murfreesboro. But before that, you had worked at a hospital, local hospital, Stonecrest Hospital, which is part of the TriStar network in Tennessee.
Correct.
You were just a hospitalist. I mean, you were a physician in the hospital seeing patients on rounds, I guess that's what you call it. But you decided that wasn't for you, and you said, I don't want to do this anymore. What was the thing that said, what was the thing that made you go, I can't do this anymore, I got to go do something on my own?
COVID, for sure.
Yeah.
It was I knew I always wanted to do that, but that made me jump out of the airplane before I had even picked up the parachute, much less knew how to open it. But COVID and the frustrations I had from getting attached to a patient and watching them die slowly, specifically with that Omicron that we had, the very serious, it was kind of the second wave or into the third wave. There was nothing that you could do. If someone came in and they were on this level of oxygen, I could tell you almost to the day how long it was going to be before I had to have the talk to take the tube out of their mouth and they were going to die. That is not what I signed up for. But the other thing that I didn't sign up for was constantly being reactive to people who don't want to hear what I have to say. So seeing a patient for the 4th time in a year for congestive heart failure because they just don't like the way that the diuretic makes them feel, or the 5th time in a month seeing someone with a COPD illness because they don't like to take their inhaler because they can't smoke when they take their inhaler or breathing treatment, and you just keep seeing these people and you put a Band-Aid on them and you send them back out. And I understand and have empathy for them that medications most time, they don't make you feel good. So I understand smoking probably makes them feel good. The medicine doesn't. So to mitigate that, instead of trying to get people to say, yes, I will take this medication that doesn't make me feel good and I'm not going to smoke which makes me feel good, is I start my own clinic with the emphasis on trying to make people as healthy as possible from the get-go. Keep them away from ever needing the medication in the first place. Because once you're there, it's an uphill battle for all physicians, for patients, for the family members, for your pocketbook, for everything. So if I can catch you back here, it is so much easier to correct the path. And that's what I'm passionate about. Even when I was in residency, I did all the weight loss in my clinic because so many things go wrong just because of carrying too much fat on your body. If we can get that off while you are in your 30s or younger, the likelihood that you have all those issues like congestive heart failure, hypertension, hyperlipidemia, kidneys going bad, blindness, diabetes, we can mitigate all those if we can just get that weight and start adjusting this healthy lifestyle back here. And I'm sure you can attest, once you get the feeling of what it feels like to be strong, it is an addicting feeling. It's an empowering feeling. But to tell someone who has struggled with their weight their whole life, it's going to feel awesome when you can run 3 miles, when they can't walk 10 feet without their ankles hurting. They can't see that. So if we can get them to that point and get that feeling, you don't forget what it was like the first time you were able to bench. For guys, it's usually that plate, that big plate on each side. Once you can do that 135, which is not a lot, you're like, I think I just grew my first chest hair. I did 135. It's a big plate. I don't have the tiny plates. I get to be in the big boy club. It is such an empowering feeling. And it's the same way for everybody. Strength and health is such an awesome feeling. If you can just get people addicted to that, we start winning at the big health problems that we have in the country. And you can't do that in a hospital when all you're doing is catching people when they're already so sick, even an ER couldn't fix them. You had to come to me. That's bad.
Yeah. Well, I can attest that it once you start experiencing the benefits of working out and getting in shape, that is a great feeling. But you have to push through. It probably took 6 to 9 months just of discipline before it flipped into, this is who I am. This is what I do. And now only recently have I started adding exercise in when I'm out of town. I travel quite a bit. I was out of town almost every day last week, and every day I exercise. At the hotel, I'd get up and I'd find a greenway close to where I stay in the hotel, and I'd go walk do my 3 miles. And if they didn't have a gym at the hotel, I was doing push-ups in the hotel room, and I was doing curls with the furniture, whatever I could do. But and I'm not saying it to brag. I just want to encourage people to understand that what you're saying is right. Once you get past the pain of discipline, it becomes part of who you are, and it will be normal. And this is coming from a guy who's a little overweight, has tried to keep the weight off for a long, long time, and have figured out how to do it. But I have lost about 20 pounds over the last couple of years, 2.5 years. So it feels great.
Yep.
I love it. And I can only imagine what it's going to be like if I actually do TRT therapy. I mean, because based on everything the research that I'm doing, I use research loosely, but the investigations that I'm doing into it and talking to you as a doctor, it makes me feel very hopeful about what life could look like. But if I'm being honest, the fact that I would have to do this for the rest of my life does seem a little bit, I don't know, scary is not the right word, but it's just like, wow, like, but
I mean, maybe they come up with a testicular transplant surgery in the future. I don't know.
Get somebody else's
So
balls.
forever is a long word to say. If some smart person out there is listening, get working on
first
that.
First ball transplant.
Testicular transplant successful. It is It is intimidating. I had to start a blood pressure medication about a year and a half ago, and my wife had to start a blood pressure medication. She wasn't feeling right. I checked it, it was high. She had to get started on blood pressure medication with her primary care doc. I checked mine, it was high. And I was thinking it was just reactive because of the stress of my wife having a high blood pressure. So been on the blood pressure medication now for about a year and a half, knowing mom and dad both have high blood pressure. My masculine side of the family, the paternal side, mimicture is almost identical, except my grandfather didn't die until he was in his 40s from his massive heart attack. So I had the same fears. And I thought, it's starting. I'm on blood pressure medication forever, most likely because it's genetic. And I even tested it because I did the same thing that every patient does. And they come in and they say, listen, I've been feeling great since I've been on this blood pressure medication. It's wonderful. So I didn't think I needed it anymore, so I stopped taking it, which when you say it out loud, sounds stupid. You felt better because of the dang blood pressure medication. And I did the exact same thing that my patients did, and I said, I think it was just anecdotal because I was worried about my wife and I'm not gonna take it, and I didn't take it. And I went the whole day and I felt great and thought, I knew I didn't need that thing, and I sat down and I had my blood pressure checked about 9 o'clock at night, as relaxed as could be. Probably had a bourbon that night laying in the bed. Blood pressure ticked off at about 160/108. Started back on that blood pressure medication next morning. So it is in our cards for some of us. And yes, I'll have to take it every day for the rest of my life, which sucks unless they come out with some new technology. Testosterone is the same way. If you want the feeling and the benefits that you get from it, it is a forever. It takes almost, because I pre-draw the syringes, 4 seconds for you to give yourself a shot twice a week. So I understand that 8 seconds a week is a commitment to me and to yourself.
Now he's making fun of me.
But you might be able to go through with it. But in the grand scheme of things, I do think we need to look at things that way, especially with your podcast and its focus. When we're looking at different ventures in our business, we're looking at different things in our life that we're going to commit our time to. What is the real cost of that time? How much time are we going to have to put into something to get a result that we want? And I can tell you that 8 seconds is going to be one of your highest yields that you can get.
Well, here's what I think we should do, because normally these podcasts are much more business focused, but because of the nature of how we were introduced and how we've been interacting as a doctor and a patient over the past few weeks, I felt like this episode deserved more of a focus on the TRT, which I hope that the audience really appreciates. So here's what I propose, is that you and I need to continue to have this conversation offline, because I am significantly interested in this. And if I make the decision, which I am predisposed to do, but if I make the decision to do TRT with you as my physician, doing that over, and monitoring over that next 6 months, then probably what we should do is have you back on the show to do a kind of a recap and a review of how that's, what my new blood results look like, how everything's going, and then also talk about how the refinery came to be, because I'm really impressed with the clinic, even though I've only been there one time and I've had interactions with you a few times. And if this works as well for me as I anticipate that it would be based on what you're saying, I think there's a lot of benefit that the listeners could have by seeing not only how you built a business in an area of your passion, but in a way that, by your rules, doing things that you want to do to help people, and then watch what it does to an average dude like me.
Perfect.
Sound good?
That sounds perfect.
Well, so as an entrepreneur who started a business just a few years ago, what's your piece of advice for entrepreneurs listening to the show? They're like, hey, we talked about all this medical stuff, but I listened because I want to hear some entrepreneurial advice. What is a piece of advice that you would give to the listeners as an entrepreneur?
Well, I hinted at the parachute story, and that is the biggest piece of advice that I could give, in that it is not important to be able to see the entire picture of the puzzle as it is to just start putting that puzzle together. You will figure things out. You will find mentors that show you better ways of doing it. The picture may be completely different. I very much doubt that used book company that Jeff Bezos started was initially set out to be the conglomerate where I literally go there for everything I buy. Even if I don't buy it from Amazon, it's at least my knee jerk to check and see what the prices I should be expecting at my local store. But he started. So I think that is the most important thing. I think people can plan themselves to failure. Continually, I haven't done this yet. I haven't checked this. I haven't figured out this one little piece, so I can't open my doors yet. And by the time the doors are open, the moment has passed and they have missed all the opportunity that they had, and they missed all the opportunity to fail, because I have definitely failed. I have an MBA in finance. They do not teach entrepreneurship in any college class at an effective level. It is one of those, you've got to do it to learn it type things, in my opinion, because everybody finds their own way of doing it. But little things like, where am I supposed to file this piece of paperwork with the county? And wow, I flubbed that LLC the first time that I did it. And what's an EIN? Why do keep people bringing this up? Where do I put my social? You know, these little things that you've just got to get in it to learn these things. If you just make a commitment that you want to start a business, I say pay some money and form an LLC or whatever type of entity you're going to form. Put skin in the game immediately and get going with it. And that will make you start it, because now you've got to do filings. Now you've got to decide what the structure of your LLC is going to be. It's a real business now. You get a piece of mail. The first time you get a piece of mail at your house that says LLC on it, you're like, basically the CEO of a corporation. You know,
right.
It's an empowering feeling, and you use that momentum to keep going. And then you fall 648 times, and then you find people like yourself that helps to mentor and say, listen, I already fell that 649th time. Maybe I could help you avoid a couple moving forward. And then you get a little cheerleading team around you. But that's my biggest piece of advice for everybody, is that generic Nike statement of just do it.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you being on the show, and I thank you for kind of pulling back the curtain a little bit on this TRT thing, because I think a lot of people don't understand it. A lot of people misunderstand it, and I think there's just there's some misinformation around it. But I think for the most part, in my opinion, I think people are just completely ignorant about it. They don't even understand what it is or that it's available. So you've opened my eyes to something brand new, even though that wasn't the reason we first started talking. So thank you for this. Thank you for the success, or congratulations rather, on the success that you've had with the refinery. And I want to encourage everybody to go check it out, the Refinery Medical, on TikTok and Instagram, Facebook, the Refinery Medical here in Murfreesboro in the Nashville area. It's Dr. James LaPere. So thanks again for being on the show, man.
Thank you for having me.
Well, there you have it, another successful entrepreneur talking about a little bit about medical stuff today. We didn't really talk business at all, but tune in again, because in another 6 months or so, probably going to have this guy back on, and we're going to see if this thing looks any different. See if my body looks any different based on the TRT therapy, the testosterone replacement therapy. So I'm really interested to see where this goes, because I'm 49 years old. I turn 50 next year. And if I can go into my 50s feeling like I did in my 30s, because I actually mentally feel like I'm 30 anyway. Like I don't feel like I've left my 30s. I think all of us Gen Xers feel like we're 30, like permanently. But I'm interested to see where this goes. So as an entrepreneur, I want to encourage you to take care of your body. He said it earlier in the show that true wealth is in your health, because without that health, nothing matters. Like nothing matters. Like you can have all the money in the world, but if you're bedridden, you're sick, you're fat, and you're medicated, like what good is that? Like you've got to have your health. So thank you for tuning in. Please make sure you like and subscribe, and check this out on YouTube. If you haven't done that, go to therealjasonduncan.com, and then you can go to the podcast section of my website, get straight to my YouTube channel, and make sure you follow the Refinery Medical also on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. And a big thanks to James LaPere for being on the show today. As always, I'm the real Jason Duncan, and Jesus is King. And cut. We're good.
Perfect.
That was good, man.
I liked it.
I did too. And we didn't talk business at all, but as we got into this, there were like a million more questions I wanted to ask.
That's why I have the long appointments.
Yeah, well, that's good. So I didn't ask this on the show because I didn't think it was appropriate to put on the show, but how much does a TRT cost?
So with me, it's probably cheaper than most places because I keep everything in house. The monitoring for the quarter, $300. The testosterone, as long as you're under 200 milligrams a week, which most people are, it's $100 for the whole 12 weeks. And then the mini panel that we do to check the labs, your complete blood count, your free and total testosterone, and estradiol to make sure none are flipping over is $50. So you're looking at about $450 every 12 weeks is the cost of it.
That's less than $200 a month. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I still want to give some consideration to it, but I really think.
Well, I do love that you were able to do that body scan because, you know, you might be wearing a skin tight shirt in 6 months if we do the follow up, and that I don't think is as impressive as it'll be to do a side by side scan. As long as you're not, you know, you don't want people seeing your skivvies. Putting that up there, even if with the technical wizardry, maybe they could blot out the middle section with the underwear, but it would have all the numbers of the measurements of decrease in waist size, decrease in body fat percent, decrease in hopefully everything that we want decrease, but an increase in those ancillary things like the muscles, the shoulders.
Yeah.
That'd be very neat to see.
Well, I agree. I think it'd be really cool. So we'll definitely just. I think once I make a firm decision to do this, I think then we should just set up a show for 6 months out.
Mm-hmm.
Do this again, and we could have the editor, you know, put in those images and show everything and what it looks like. I think that'd be really very interesting because, man, if you do, I'm sure you've done it. I just did it, but if you do a YouTube search of TRT, gazillion videos on it, and they're all over the map. And none of the ones I watched were directly saying anything in opposition to anything else. They were all perspectives of the same thing. I didn't watch a single one that was don't do it. There were a couple of guys like, you know, one guy I watched, he did his TRT journey and he looked terrible. He was fat. I mean, he was just fat. He's like, yeah, this is what it did to me, blah, blah, blah. But he still wasn't saying don't do it. And I was thinking, well, what happened to this guy's life? Like, what did you do? Because he showed a picture of him before and now, and then he went on to say further in the video that he had a major injury and it completely threw his whole body out. Like, I his back injury or something. I'm like, ooh, I don't want that to happen.
Well, there's a corporation out there now, the Low T Clinic.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
They're wreaking havoc on the testosterone business because they've just monetized it, unfortunately. So the majority of them now will not do twice a week shots. They'll only do once a week or once every 14-day shots. If you're not comfortable doing the shot yourself and you want to go into them, I think they charge either $25 or $75 to push your own medication that you already paid for into your butt cheek. It's free with us. I don't care. It takes Tina 1 second to push that medication in your butt if you can't do it. And we really do. We've got several people that come once a week, mostly females, to get their shot because they just can't do it. And the husbands are kind of wusses and can't give it to them. They don't like blood or needles or fill in the blank. So they come in and get their shot from Tina and we don't care. But the low T centers, like anything, when you automate something and you just go by algorithm, you ruin it.
Yeah.
So you've got a nurse practitioner that can't make decisions on their own, that has to follow, if it's this, you get this, no questions asked. If it's that, you get that. We decline the dose if it's too high, we increase it if it's too low. And you can't get out of that box. Whereas I don't have a box. I have patients that we talk with.
Yeah.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.